Hi everyone. So welcome to our webinar, AI in Economics. What is the actual future of finance? This is part of our series called Finance in Focus, an annual webinar series to give our students an insight into the economics and financial industry. So this is organized by School of Economics and Finance at Queen Mary University of London. So following the university global reputation, we have consistently been in the top 50 and top 100 in the world in our field. And in our master's programs, we focus on employability and practical skills with modules taught by industry professionals, extensive career support services, and extracurricular professional development activities to help you gain experience while at school. We currently have 9 master's programs from economics, finance to wealth management, and in some of our programs, we offer trainings for CFA exams as part of our curriculum, and we even offer a year in industry, which offers you a chance to gain work experience while studying for your degree. And for all of these programs, we offer a wide range of scholarships for our master's program. Most of these scholarships are automatically awarded to eligible applicants. And for more information about our school, our programs, and our scholarships, you can visit our website through the QR code or send us an email if you have any specific inquiries. And so, without further ado, let's get to our main event today, and please welcome our speakers, Dr. Daniele Bianchi from School of Economics and Finance, Akash Tiwari, our MSc alumni, who is currently Securitization Analyst at NatWest, and our student ambassador, Keenan Jude Fernandez, who is also our moderator for the discussion today. So the stage is yours.
Hi, a very good morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel, and thank you so much, Akash Tiwari, for joining us. So, as you know, today we have AI in economics. What is the actual future of finance? So, we'll start with the questionnaire. So, our first topic for today is like, what can AI actually do in finance today, and what can't it do yet? So, the first question goes to Dr. Daniel. You work on the bond risk premiums that showed neural networks that can beat the traditional yield curve approach, and yet other research of yours finds economically motivated models that outperform the lasso and random forest. From the inside, how do you tell in advance which problems machine learning will actually win at and which it won't? Mind if you can give us an elaborated answer, please? Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question and for moderating, Keenan, and obviously thanks, Nam, for organizing the event. This is actually a deeper question that it sounds, in the sense that historically machine learning methods, or what people now call AI, has been designed for prediction. Anything that was supposed to be based on forecasting, machine learning was very good at it. Over the last few years, and that's something that I've been showing in my own research, it's not just about forecasting that machine learning excels to, but it's also about causality and structural analysis. So going deeper into understanding causal relationship between, macroeconomic variables and financial variables, or vice versa, understanding causal relationships in risks and returns. So all those sorts of questions, now machine learning is becoming better and better over the last few years. So, this is probably a long answer to your question, but what I'm saying is that although historically people looked at machine learning as a prediction tool, now it's becoming also very much useful also to understand structuring economic data, structuring financial data and financial markets. Now, it's difficult to say ex ante if a particular model or tool is good at one thing vis-a-vis another one. That's mostly often is an empirical question and something that a researcher or user experiment with over time. But I really don't think that there is something that machine learning at the moment cannot be used for. Can be used for a wide range of different tasks, although as I said, historical has been looked at for the most part as a prediction tool, as a set of prediction models for the most part.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel, for giving such a precise and detailed answer. Really appreciate for your insights. So moving on, we ask this question, next question to for our alumni of the School of Economics and Finance. Thank you so much, Mr. Akash Tiwari, for joining us. So the question to you is, from inside a bank like NatWest, where is AI already doing real useful work day to day, and where is it still more slideware than reality?
Um, Thank you so much, Kiran, for having me today. I mean, it's really an honor to be over here. But to answer your question, I feel like AI is generally useful in areas which involves large amounts of data sets, be it like documentation review, summarizing some information, summarizing email chains, or even understanding Excel formulas for someone who doesn't have that sort of background. But it allows professionals to work more efficiently and focus more on the analysis part rather than on the focusing on the administrative part as such. But where I think it's a bit overhyped currently is fully autonomous decision making, because we work in an industry where we look after risk, credit, and investment decisions. And I feel like those are certain areas where human judgment still plays a really critical role, right? So, I mean, markets are unpredictable and they are based upon sometimes on human behavior as well. But I feel like it's more of a co-pilot rather than an autopilot. So that's what I feel.
Thank you so much, Akash. So moving on, we go to our next topic. So our next topic is like, why does economics still matter when the models keep getting bigger? So the question is for Dr. Daniel. You treated low R square in financial forecasting as something to expect rather than be alarmed by. Markets are always noisy by nature. So how does economic reasoning keep you disciplined when a flexible model finds a pattern that's probably just noise?
Thanks. This is a very interesting question. Before I answer that, let me also echo what Akash said before about the co-pilot versus pilot thing, and I fully share his view in the sense that one of the hypes that you see, especially nowadays, is that you can subsidize almost everything to AI tools. There is some kernel of truth, but the overlay of human interaction, the overlay of decision making, is still, I believe, in the hands of humans for the most part. So I fully share, and it's an analogy that I guess I'm going to use with my students, this co-pilot versus pilot analogy, and I fully share that view. I definitely agree with that. Now, going back to your question about economic reasoning embedded in machine learning, this is very much related to what we just discussed, in the sense that I think that you cannot avoid to use economic thinking to the extent that you want to use AI or machine learning in economic modeling, right? So, being for auditing, being for post-processing, being for sanity checks, being for analyzing outputs and such. I really don't think that if you are an economist and want to leverage the power of these tools, which is definitely there, you have to use economic reasoning. You have to use a set of toolboxes that are available to economists, and you learn over time, either in school or on your daily work. So definitely, economic reasoning and economic theory, to a large extent, is a guiding principle, even if you use AI tools or machine learning for large-scale data analysis, forecasting, structural modeling, and the likes, because those are the guiding principles. If you apply a model, if you apply a particular methodology, and you're going to find something that does not make any economic sense, that's already a red flag, right? So, as you said, in the case of markets, for instance, markets are very noisy. And as such, economic theory helps a lot. It helps to separate correlation versus causation, for instance, helps to separate or interpret outputs in economic phenomena. So I really don't see how, if you are an economist and work in finance or in economics, I really don't see how you can subsidize the whole package to AI without thinking yourself about first principles in economics. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel, for giving such a great answer. So moving on, we go to Mr. Akash. So Mr. Akash, when NatWest evaluates a model for something like credit or risk, how much weight goes on can we explain why it works versus it performs well? Does the business side trust the black box?
I mean, from my perspective, I think explainability is very important in banking. I mean, because it is a really highly regulated environment. And then it is not just about if the model is performing well, it is also about whether the people can understand the output and if they can challenge it, right? Especially if it involves like capital decision makings and if it involves customers, right? And I think firms can adopt the AI model more freely once they know like how the decision is being made, right? And again, it's more of a I mean, if we are completely relying upon a black box, that becomes harder from a risk and governance perspective, right? And I think, broadly speaking, explainability remains the key requirement for a financial institution in the end. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akash. So I have two questions to the both of you all. So the first question is, what is one task where AI has generally changed the game for you, and one where it has been overhyped or actively unhelpful?
So for academia, for economics, for research at large, obviously AI has been a game changer. Allows you to do a variety of tasks that were historically time consuming and not necessarily the core of a research project, much much quicker and with lower room for error. So I would argue that definitely is a productivity boost. I think that's out of the question, both for teaching and research. Is going back to what we discussed before, is not nevertheless a substitute for ideas. Research is really about ideas, and teaching is really about giving your experience to students. So those two things are, at least not as today, can't be replaced by using AI tools. Although, I mean, as I said, nevertheless, I guess it's unquestionable that it's a productivity boost. So I think there is an element of hype and is an element of truth as far as the use of AI tools in academic research is concerned. Reality is a bit more complex, and I think that is usually the truth lies in between. So it's not fully just hype, and it's not just fundamental values. It's something in between. So if I have to summarize, it's definitely a productivity boost, but doesn't substitute for getting new and good ideas and giving your experience to students. Is not a substitute to that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel. Mr. Akash, mind if you can elaborate on this?
I mean, I completely agree with Daniel, but if I were to say something based upon my experience, I feel like areas that involves like summarizing information, AI is really good in that area per se. But I feel like there is still, again, coming back to the thing that I previously said, like it cannot make like financial decisions for you. It cannot judge whether you should be investing or lending into a specific company. I think that sort of area still relies in the hands of humans yet. So I think, yeah, it is really good in some areas, being like, if you want to improve your written communication per se, if you're writing an email, right, that can be really helpful. But then if you were to decide how will you judge this capital ratio, how will you judge this credit ratios, then I think you need that human touch or judgment on that area. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akash. So the second question to the both of you all for the panel today is, can a team of brilliant machine learning engineers with no finance background build a genuinely good trading or risk system, or where would they come unstuck?
I think this is an interesting question. I think it depends in the sense that it depends what ultimately is the task. If I think about, I don't know, high frequency trading or statistical arbitrage, things that are more let's say, computational in nature? The answer might be probably yes. But if I think about, for instance, Akash job or job that are related to risks, mortgaging, lending, anything that relates to client, the answer is probably no. So I guess it depends on the degree of automation of what we're discussing. There are things that are already fully automatized. High frequency trading is one of those examples. Trading bots, so to speak. I can see a computer scientist building these things, an engineering building these things relatively successfully. A whole of a different job would be, being a credit risk officer or being an investment analyst. Those are different jobs where, as Akash was mentioning before, you still need experience, you still need human judgment at the end, if anything, also for regulatory purposes. There needs to be accountability in some sense upon decision making. So I think the answer is really, it depends on the nature of the job. But for the most part, for what people normally think about banking, corporate finance, investments, I think the answer is no. But there is a niche of jobs, and there is a niche of tools whereby an engineer with relatively low experience in finance can still build something good. But those are niche applications, so to speak. At least that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel. On to you, Mr. Akash.
I think Daniel has summed it up really well, and I also feel the same way. I mean, a good model can actually tell you like what is happening, but I think you still need like economic fundamentals to understand like why is it happening, right? So yeah, I mean, we also have like teams who are great in creating models, who are great in terms of coding. I mean, but then if things go south, like if you don't know like what's going on, like why is that happen, then they usually come up to like the financial experts into it. So yeah, I mean, a good model is really good. It can give you like great data. It can make things a bit quicker, but then the final decision lies with the financial experts in the end. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akash, for a wonderful, great answer. So moving on, we go to our next topic. So our next topic is, how is AI changing the way finance professionals work day to day? So the question is for Dr. Daniel. As program director, how has the way you teach and do research changed since tools like large language models entered the workflow? Like, what do you spend less time on now and more time on?
That's a wonderful question, and it's a very complicated one, especially on the teaching side. I think there are challenges and opportunities, the way I see it. Opportunities because you can scale up, you can leverage up the material that you give to students. By that I mean you can produce more easily notes, you can produce more easily slides, case studies, things that can be more. It's easier right now to write longer documents, more precise documents, proofreading, and all that type of stuff. These are where the opportunities lie, and there are also technological opportunities. For instance, one of the things that we're experimenting now at CEF is chat widget, whereby students can interact online, very much like a virtual teaching assistant. They can interact online with the material of a given course. This is something that we're experimenting now. Will be live at least on my courses next year, and it's designed. Those are technological solutions that are designed to improve the learning experiences. There are also risks, though, and for instance, when it comes to assessment, it's becoming more and more complicated to assess coursework or take-home exams, right? For obvious reasons, right? You can subsidize some of the work to AI tools, and so from a teacher perspective, it becomes a bit more complicated to assess coursework and take-home exams, which are still very much an important part of the assessment, nevertheless. But there are obviously some challenges that AI brings to the table as a teacher. As far as research is concerned, the things is slightly different because research is both for the wider audience and potential students, but the reality is that it's mostly your audience is mostly peers, so other academics, other researchers, And I see that from the point of view of research, there are more opportunities than challenges. That doesn't mean that there are no challenges, but there are definitely opportunities. Opportunities, as I said before, in analyzing data, analyzing documents, proofreading, coding. There are all sorts of opportunities that AI gives you to boost productivity and to make things better. But there are also challenges also for research from the point of view of evaluating research. For instance, peer-to-peer reviewing is an example. Becomes very much like assessing students. Becomes complicated to evaluating the actual value of a given research paper, for instance, right? So I think we are living in interesting times in that respect. There are obviously lots of opportunities, but there are also challenges. And it's not obvious to me often how we can address those challenges fully. But yeah, that's the world we live in, and there's not much we could do about it. I think we need to embrace this technology to the fullest and see where we're going.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel, for a wonderful answer. So the question goes to Mr. Akash. You graduated from in Masters in Banking and Finance at the School of Economics and Finance, and now you're early in your career at NatWest. So, how much of your day actually involves AI tools, and what do you do now that the cohort a few years above you didn't?
Um, Honestly, more than I expected when I was studying. I mean, I use AI quite regularly on my day-to-day work, be it like summarizing information, even helping like a little bit of codes. I remember there was a time when my team was struggling with understanding how the Swift is formatted, so they tasked me to create a Swift formatter for them, and obviously I would need like some sort of coding experience for that. And I'm personally someone who comes from a commerce and financial background and don't have any coding language. So I used Copilot at that time to create a bit of a Swift formatter for the whole team, and it's become part of my workflow, and as it helps me work faster and structure my thinking in a better way. And that said, it doesn't actually helps me making like judgment or decision making. It's more of a productivity support tool for me rather than driving it all by itself. So yeah, that's what I feel.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akash, for a detailed answer. So, the question next up is for the whole panel. So, where do you deliberately not use AI in your workflow and why?
Um, in my case, for instance, some of the things that you do not use AI tools is where there are some sensible information involved. For instance, for teaching, you don't use for grading and marking. You don't use those tools. Anytime there is some private information involved, that's obvious. Um, um, so those are the no-go, let's say. And as far as research is concerned, again, I don't subsidize my creative process to AI tools. I use those tools mostly as a productivity leverage, productivity boost, but not as an innovation boost. Those are two different things. So I don't use AI to generate new ideas, so to speak. I use AI to make my life more easier as far as research is concerned. And this is also true for teaching. I don't use AI tools to tell me what I'm supposed to teach. I use AI tools to make my material better and give more learning opportunities to students, but certainly not to design a course, for instance, or decide what I'm supposed to teach in any given lecture. So those are the things that for me are I'm not using AI and I'm not planning to use AI in this area anytime soon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel. On to you, Mr. Akash.
I think my answer would also be somewhere in the lines of what Daniel said. I wouldn't use AI when there's a sensitive information involved or where there's a private deal involved, right? Where I feel like this can actually hamper the deal. I wouldn't use AI in that sort of areas. Or even when I'm trying to assess a situation, like if something has happened, if the client has requested something, I wouldn't actually use AI in that area because, I mean, the answers that AI is going to provide is based upon some sort of data, and I don't know like what's the background of that data. So I think in those specific areas, I would rely on my own judgment rather than going to AI. And then again, as Daniel said, then if I were to be thinking about like new ideas, I would rely upon my own judgment rather than going to rely on that sector basically.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akash, for a wonderful answer. So, moving on to our last and final topic for today is what are the risks when finance leans too hard on AI and who's accountable? So, the question is to Dr. Daniel. The same machine learning models that absorb uncertainty also create a new kind. We often can't explain why a neural network made a given call. How worried should we be about that black box problem in markets specifically itself?
Yeah, this is really important, and it relates to something that Akash was also mentioning before. Regulators by now they ask transparency and accountability. So you cannot, and not that's not just regulators, but also stakeholders within firms. If you provide some investment recommendation, then the chances are your boss asks why you give that recommendation, and you cannot simply say the model says so. So there is an increasing need of transparency and accountability, and the fact that historically speaking, machine learning and AI has been seen as a black box obviously was an issue. Now, we should say, though, that this is no longer the case in the sense that by now we have tools, so-called explainable AI tools or interpretable machine learning tools, which to some extent help to open the black box a bit and understand what is the decision process, if we can call it so, behind machine learning on AI, so that we can at least understand what a given model does. And then, I mean, if we keep the human layer or the human decision-making layer on top of it, I think we could confidently argue that it's certainly less of a black box than it used to be. Um, so that's where the human decision making comes in, and the new methodologies or new tools actually comes to rescue. Now, I think that if we think about the new LLM or the new AI tools, such as Claude, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and the likes, those are still relatively black boxes in the sense that for the average user, it's still very much a mystery how this model works, right? Maybe less so for computer scientists, but certainly for the average user, those are more black boxes than using, let's say, a random forest of a neural network to build a predictive system. Those are things that by now we have tools to understand how they work. We have tools to understand how they make decisions. But LLM is still a black box for most of us, let's say. And this could be definitely something that regulators have on the spotlight and stakeholders certainly care about. So I wouldn't necessarily drop the whole technology because it's seen as a black box. I think it's the contrary. We need to do more work to understand how LLM actually works and make other people understand how LLM actually works so that we can embrace fully the technology. As far as more regular machine learning models are concerned, neural nets, random forest, and the likes, by now we have tools so that they're still relatively black box, but certainly less than before.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel, for a wonderful answer. So next up, we have the question to Mr. Akash. Banking is heavily regulated. So how does that shape what AI NatWest, what AI tool NatWest is actually allowed to deploy? And is regulation a brake, a guardrail, or is it both?
I feel like it's a bit of both. I mean, regulations can slow things down because it involves like compatibility. It has to be secure, it has to be reliable before adopting them, and which naturally takes time, right? But also at the same time, it creates trust and accountability. Especially, I mean, these are areas where your decisions can have like real consequences, right? So I wouldn't say that it is actually stopping innovation, but to me, it's more like you are making innovation in a more responsible and controlled manner. So I feel like it's a bit of both for me. Yeah, it does slow it down, but I think it's for the greater good for the whole industry.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akash, for a wonderful answer. So we have a final question for today, and which is for our whole panel. So when an automated system causes a big loss, who should be accountable? The quant, the firm, the regulator, the vendor, and is the current framework fit for purpose?
This is a question for regulators, but it's definitely important and goes back to what we discussed before about accountability and transparency. Uh, it's accountability is key when it comes to AI and machine learning. Who is ultimately responsible for the decision making? And that's why humans are still important and are still central as far as decision making is concerned, because there needs to be some accountability there, and accountability is usually given to humans. That's as far as I could go without having the technical ins and outs of current state of regulation. But broadly speaking, accountability and transparency are the reasons why regulators are pushing towards, or put differently, the questions that you raise are the reason why regulators are pushing more and more towards transparency, explainability, and accountability, because there needs to be someone that can be accounted for in case something goes south, being internal risk management processes, being the chief risk officer, being whoever is in charge, and usually that whoever is a human being. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel, for that. On to you, Mr. Akash.
I mean, I completely agree with what Daniel said. I mean, if things go bad, you cannot come up and say because the model said so. And right, I mean, that's why you need the humans to make the final call, right? And yeah, I mean, you can create a really good model that can give you a great output, but then if you cannot challenge it, and if you don't know like what's going on in the back of it, you cannot make like great decisions based upon it. And I think that's where the regulations come in, right? That's why it takes like a lot of time to for a new model to be implemented in a bank-wide operations, right? So yeah, I think the accountability would still lie who made the final decision, and I think at at the current time it relies with the hands of the humans. So yeah.
So okay, I guess we conclude our webinar. I would say a very big thank you, Dr. Daniel and Mr. Akash, for giving your time out of your busy schedule and answering my questions to give an insight for our program at the School of Economics and Finance. Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel. Thank you so much, Mr. Akash Tiwari, for giving your time once again. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Keenan,
Thank
for
you so much.
moderating this. Thanks a lot. Thank you.